Auburn is trending up. Baylor's defense still stinks. And Nebraska, well, their defense stinks too.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I am Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. And today, I'm going to be analyzing a few of the games and some of the players that were supposed to be really good recruits, etc. Some have worked out and some have not. Portal entries, everything else. College football week 1. Who's doing their job and who's not. Going to be talking about Auburn and Baylor. Going to be talking a little bit about Cincinnati running over Nebraska's defense despite Nebraska winning. We're going to get the signs for the outcome of this season here based on game 1. And then we'll talk a little bit about the big picture of the weekend in about 15 minutes. We're going to hit this pretty fast. We're going to hit this pretty hard. My internet where I'm at is not the greatest, so I want to get this in as best I can. But thank you very much for tuning in. It is a lot of fun to be here. Again, week 1 college football. It just doesn't get any better. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Let's talk about the Auburn-Baylor game. First off, just flat out entertaining. Second off, when I went on Zach Blackerby's show, Locked on Auburn this week, he just asked me, we're talking recruiting and different things. So give me a prediction. I gave him 38-24. So this guy got it right. 38-24. But at the same time, I didn't, it was just throwing out there. I'll admit, I'll take the win. But it was weird how it happened. I thought that Auburn would throw the ball a lot because I didn't think Auburn would have a hard time beating the Baylor defensive backs. And maybe they would have. But when you just run over a team, who cares? Here are the stats by quarter for Auburn's rushing total. Now, this is by quarter. This is not, repeat, this is not a half. This is not the game. This is by quarter. First quarter for the Tigers, 6.6 yards per carry, 73 yards. Second quarter, 5.4 yards per carry, 86 yards. Third quarter, 7.5 yards per carry, 82 yards. Fourth quarter, 4.7 yards per carry, 66 yards. That was their worst performance, and that's when everybody knew they were just trying to run out the clock. If you could run the ball like that, especially with Jackson Arnold, who's obviously a very talented athlete, a big guy that can get tough yards, I think that's something we need to talk about momentarily. You're talking about a guy that kind of made it really difficult. They ran inside zone, outside zone, stretch, different things, but they ran different forms of power with the quarterback for tough yards too. Jackson Arnold as a runner, the stats were pretty good running, 16 for 137 and 8.6. I mean, that's pretty darn good. But the more value, I would say, is really some of his shorter runs, just because he kept the clock running and he did all the little things that you need to make sure that Auburn was going to win. Clutch plays, moxie, leadership, toughness. Those are some things I had a lot of questions about. I ain't going to lie. I picked Auburn to win because I thought their receivers would catch short passes or just fades, like jump over the Baylor DBs and create problems. And again, maybe they would have if that's the approach Auburn would have taken. But he barely threw for over 100 yards. I mean, for the game, I mean, I don't know what they would have done, but he was 11 of 17 for 108 yards. That is about as pedestrian as it going to get for a total. Just under 10 yards per completion. That's pretty solid, but per attempt, it's really pedestrian. I don't think they're bad at throwing the ball, but they just don't have to. But on the other side, we got to say it. Baylor, your defense is as bad as we kind of thought it was going to be. But here's the problem. Dave Aranda is a defensive coach. He's kind of on the hot seat anyway because they knew they had offense. You had to improve that defense, and they got run over. Sawyer Robertson throws for 419 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you lose? That's rough. Auburn's defensive front also did a nice job. Washington's a good running back for Baylor, but he only averaged 3.9. He had a few decent runs, but for the most part, yeah, it was not good. He just didn't have that many places to go. Auburn has better athletes. They have more size. It's what I expected up front there. But I just didn't think they would beat Baylor up that badly when Auburn had the ball to just run generic RPO plays and gash them 5 to 8 yards at a pop and just grind them into a pulp. So my take is Auburn is going to be a team that can beat anybody on a given day. I still don't think they have the talent to win the SEC, but I still think they're also good enough to create problems for you. And hats off to Jackson Arnold. He deserves a lot of props. That is a tough dude. He had a really unfortunate second season in Norman. He was pretty darn good for Auburn last night. Another quick note on Baylor. Michael Trigg does not suck. Holy cow. That guy he got beat up quite a bit. That's a player. Wilson, the other receiver, he had 134 yards. He had one longer one. Trigg is one of those guys, though, he gets the physical tough yards. Wilson's a guy that's got speed, makes big plays. Both those guys are pretty interesting. For Auburn, though, one note on them before I move on to Nebraska here. Their secondary's got some questions, especially in the slot. They've recruited the secondary really well, and it still got smoked. That is a major concern for Auburn, and that's why I said they're not an SEC contender. They're not. Auburn is not an SEC contender. They don't have the secondary. I know Sawyer Robertson's good. I know Baylor's got some good players at receiver, flex, and all that. But there were a lot of guys that were just flat open, and Auburn's players rarely made plays on the ball in 50-50. They were terrible in 50-50 situations. Not bad, terrible. That's a concern. Now let's talk a little bit about Nebraska when we come back. I want to know your take on the Huskers. A lot of people were saying that was going to be a team this year that, quite frankly, took not just a step forward, but was going to be a major contender. Dylan Raiola said, hey, we're going to compete for the national title this year. Yeah, that's not happening. It's a problem there, and I'm not picking on Nebraska, but they got some issues that have been plaguing the Huskers for a long time. Some things just haven't changed. That is next on the Portal Podcast. College football is back. Week 1 was a lot of fun so far. We got a whole day ahead of us here on a Saturday as I record this on Saturday morning. I couldn't be more excited about it. We got all the big games, LSU at Clemson. We got Ohio State hosted Texas. Games around the country, just a lot of fun. Tailgates, rivalries, everything going crazy. And stands, they got to have people in them. You got to get tickets to go. There's nothing like it, but getting tickets isn't always a lot of fun. All the different prices, things changing before you get to checkout. That's why you need to use Gametime. The app that I use gives you the advantage to see your price up front and not have to worry about anything. You can just pull up the Gametime app, click on whichever game you want, Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, LSU, whatever it is. You'll know the price up front instead of getting screwed at the end like some other competitors. And that makes it a lot better. So take the guesswork out of getting tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and get $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm trying to keep this one a little shorter. My internet is not the greatest where I'm at as I travel to cover high school football. I'll do some more stuff when I get back early next week. I'm going to have to do some catch-up episodes, but I wanted to get this one in. Hopefully I can get one in tomorrow morning as well to recap everything from today. But I want to talk about Nebraska for a second. Now, the Cornhuskers have improved. That's not debatable. Dylan Raiola, he looks better too, by the way. He put in the time in the offseason. Shout out, Dylan. You did a nice job. Got to put in the work in the offseason. He threw for over 200 yards. He looked pretty accurate. I still wish he'd tighten up his throwing motion, make it a little quicker, but I digress. But that's not my concern. My concern is they've got one pretty good running back, but they're not dominant up front. They struggle to really push Cincinnati around. Cincinnati, a lower level Big 12 team. Yet Dylan and everybody said their expectations, they're not sniffing the college football playoff with their fronts. Their offensive and defensive lines are just okay. They're okay. They are not a contender for the college football playoff. They're not. And if somehow they manage to sneak in with 9-3, and I don't think they are going to go 9-3, they would get annihilated in the first round. Not beaten, annihilated. Because that means they would play one of the following 8 teams in round 1. Clemson, Georgia, Bama, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, or Oregon. Good luck. There's no way they're getting like a top 4 seed or hosting with that team. They're not. So that means one of those other teams who will be somewhere between a 5 and an 8. I don't know, that order from those 8 schools for that those 4 spots, they're going to host. Good luck if they were to make, but they're not. Cincinnati ran for 202 yards despite Sorsby, the quarterback for Cincinnati. He ran for over 90 yards, not being able to get any passing game going. Now, Nebraska's pass defense was pretty good. It was. But they don't have the ability to give up 202 yards. 202 to Cincinnati and then tell me, hey, we're a contender for the playoff or anything. Contender in the Big Ten. They're not. They're not remotely. And anybody that was buying that in Lincoln, I don't think many people outside of Omaha, Lincoln area really bought that in the first place. But just to reiterate, this is what Raiola said, not me. They are not a contender. They don't have the recruiting for them has just not been good enough. This is not a coaching issue. This is not an effort issue. This is not an off-season conditioning. This is 100% a recruiting problem for Nebraska. And it's been the same one. It's been there forever. They can't get the elite players to Lincoln anymore, especially in the trenches. Their secondary and some of the receiver, the Dane Key kid and a few other, they've got some players. They got some young kids from Miami, etc. They've improved quite a bit at the skill spots. The running back's a good player. Obviously, Raiola's a good player. Who's the first or second round pick that's going to lead them on the defensive line? Where's the depth? Which guy off the bench is going to be an NFL player? That's where you've got to be a playoff team. So this stuff about Nebraska being up, they're better, and it's good for college football. I'm hoping that I'm wrong in some capacity and some guys really step up because it's better for college football when Nebraska is a quality football team. No doubt. But then it's not that good up front. On defense, again, they give up 202 yards to the Cincinnati Bearcats, a team that will finish in the bottom half of the Big 12. You're not convincing me or anybody else with any common sense that Nebraska is going anywhere. So it is what it is. Nebraska will be annoying, and they might beat like one team, have a good day turning the ball over or whatever. But any good team that has similar or better talent than Nebraska that doesn't turn it over is probably going to beat them. In Lincoln, at the Chancellor's house, I don't care where they play the game, they don't have the dudes up front to get it done. Now I just want to make a few comments about college football for today. Just one hitters here, just to throw it in. I got Clemson over LSU. LSU lost not one, but both, keywords, both of their offensive tackles a year early to NFL draft. That's rough. They couldn't run the ball anyway. Now they're facing Clemson in their house at their version of Death Valley. And Klubnik, and just a plethora of skill guys. I think they'll throw it around. I still need to see LSU's defense be better, and I think they will be. But are they good enough to win on the road to make up for their offensive line? I don't think so. I think Clemson wins. I also have Texas beating Ohio State today. We'll see if I'm right. I think that game will be close. But I just like Texas because they got Malik Muhammad, they got a safety that's an All-American, etc. I think their secondary will be a little bit better than Ohio State's. They lost a lot, and Ohio State lost all 4 of their defensive linemen. They got really good players. Jackson, it's a name you're going to know for Ohio State. But I think that Texas is a little better. Trenches, and then their secondary, and they have Cedric Baxter back. He was injured last year, really bad knee injury. He's supposed to be ready to roll. That just adds another really good player in the backfield. And, of course, Arch Manning's a good player. but handing the ball off and getting it in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5 all day does not go out of style. So I got the Horns winning a close one. And then just overall, I think there will be pretty status quo. I don't expect a ton of upsets, this, that, and the other for Saturday. And on Sunday, I've got Notre Dame outlasting Miami. I think that will be kind of an ugly game, but a few key turnovers, special teams plays will actually lead to big points. It'll be a muck game in terms of offense because I think both teams defensively have gotten a lot of talent over the last few years. And I think Miami's defense will have stepped up, especially in their front seven. Still need to see them in the secondary, but Notre Dame's secondary is elite. And I think that will be the difference of the game. I don't think Miami will consistently be able to throw the ball. I like Notre Dame's DBs against Miami's pass catchers. So we'll see. But thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We will see you again soon.